Welcome to the Matchbook Betting Podcast. My name is Jesse May, and we are here to talk about the NFL with our experts, Judah Fortgang and Doug Kezirian. Personal note, I did follow bets from this card last week. I went 3-2, won 2 units. Big win for me. So very happy about the expert advice was given last week. Let's see if we can carry it on. And both our guests smashed their best bets. As has been the trend. Let's talk to you first, Doug. You hit that. You're the team total master, I would say. Snuck in with the Commanders over. Also hit the Eagles -7. They manhandled the Cowboys. But look, I think we had a great conversation last week about strategy, coaching. I was thinking all week about that 12-year-old playing the Madden football and stuff. Just wondering from last week, any coaching decisions or strategy pop up that was either noteworthy, good, or bad?
Yeah, and it bums me out because I'm a big fan of Sean McVay. Obviously, he's won a Super Bowl. He knows what he's doing schematically. Obviously, I don't belong in the same vicinity of him. But in terms of the timeouts and more importantly, the 2-point conversion decision and the strategy at the end of the game, you're just pretty lost. I just don't get how some of these coaches treat 8 the same as 7 in terms of a deficit and decide to kick a field goal on the 4 when they're essentially assuming the 2.5-yard line or whatever it is, the next subsequent touchdown is good. It's just very mind-boggling, some of this stuff, but it is what it is. I'm almost defeated, right? And it's gotten to the point where, I'm a bachelor, but I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Who is the coach that you would take right now out of all the coaches in the NFL to beat or at least equal the 12-year-old playing Madden?
I mean, ironically, it backfired, but I think Sean Payton does a good job of understanding. How he played the end of that Denver game made perfect sense. He did the right thing, right? He wasn't playing for a 55-yarder like Dan Campbell sometimes does, but he was playing for a normal, and then it's hit or miss. I mean, at times I thought Brandon Staley did things right. I think the same season he beat the Chiefs twice, I want to say. He did the right thing at the end of the games to not give the ball to Mahomes. But then he obviously was crazy and silly in some other situations. Part of me thinks that these guys do stuff to just because it's the popular decision, and then if it's trendy, I don't know. Baffling, but some of these guys, especially the college level, it's really painful to watch them just completely, they operate in a vacuum instead of understanding the end of the the clock at the end of maybe specifically the first half.
All right. It is. It's like it's a roller coaster. And that Chiefs game was insane at the end. Especially
Vrabel's one guy who really did a nice job at times and understood the nuances.
All right, Judah, on to you. You hit your best bet, Bills. That was a great look. But thank you for the Patriots money line. Never looked in doubt. And you're kind of the quarterback whisperer there. Drake May obviously had a good game. Any other quarterback or any quarterback in particular last week had a noteworthy or unexpected performance?
I mean, I feel like Caleb Williams had. I don't know if unexpected is the right word, but the degree of bad, I think was certainly surprising. Russell Wilson just keeps on doing it, continuing to hit on those deep passes as they put up a pretty solid performance. And the last one I'd say is Kyler Murray. I think is having a really sneaky, terrific season. He's got to be up there as one of the having maybe the best season of any quarterback in the NFC, which is a little bit crazy to say. And he did it in a little bit of a different way. This game, a lot of short passes. Maybe this isn't him so much as like Trey McBride is generating a ton of yards after the catch, but very high completion percentage, continuing to, and this is a Cardinals team that is really staying ahead of the chains. And I think it's time to kind of look at this offense and say, this is an offense that's for real. It's not the first time Kyler Murray's put together a stretch of play that's been particularly dominant. I think it was 2020, I want to say, where he was the MVP favorite after 10 weeks. He's back to full health. And this is a Cardinals team that I think whereas they're probably not a Super Bowl contender or kind of firmly in that tier right below. And they certainly showed that against a tough Jets defense last week.
Yeah, and like Kyler Murray, a bit of a forgotten man, as you mentioned. Now we're seeing him again. Doug, you like Judah, you guys were both leaning Jets last week. For you, is it a case of Arizona so good or Jets so bad now that you're looking back?
Honestly, it's this sharp money that influences me every week on the Jets, especially the previous time we saw them. That sharp money proved to be correct. That Thursday night game. They're kind of a hot mess now, but I was on them in week 2 against the Rams. Well, the Rams are so beat up. Gannon's in the discussion for coach of the year. I think there's a lot to like with this Arizona team as well. In terms of the Jets, like, they should be better than they are. And also, going into last week, particularly, like, the kicker had cost them a couple games. It's not crazy that they were a decent team, not a good team, but like, I understood the sharp money, I guess, that moved the market for them to flip them from underdog to favorite. But it's really Rodgers is their weakness now. This league is just crazy. I mean, look, last week, Dogs went 11-3, including 6 outright. So they were obviously barking, and the house did well and all that stuff. So it's a very hard league to figure out. You playfully tease me about the team total. Sometimes that's the only way to go in my eyes, because if you think about it, there's so much factors that go into the side and total that sometimes you can kind of avoid, or at least put the advantages on your side if you are sneaky with some of the team totals and some other derivatives.
Absolutely. And that brings us right into what I wanted to talk about or mention before we get into the games, which is the NFL promo on Matchbook. Basically, it's a great promo because it's free money, okay? And we have a product on Matchbook called Bet Builder, which is really same-game parlays. I think they call them around your guys' neck of the woods. If you make any 10-pound or more same-game parlay bet or Bet Builder bet on Matchbook on the NFL at any time in the week, you will receive a 5-pound free Bet Builder bet for the Monday night game. So look, everyone knows that the same game parlays, the Bet Builders, a little more of a retail product, which means there's a bigger margin. But hey, for this bet 10 get 5 free, essentially, you've got to be losing at like a 50% ROI in order to not make this worthwhile. And as far as I'm concerned, unless you're betting 8 legs or more, you're not going to get there. And if you're betting 8 legs or more, I hope you know what you're doing. So try and check out the Bet Builder product on Matchbook. One thing about the Bet Builders on Matchbook that's different from a lot of other same-game parlay products is they allow singles, or shall I say we allow singles, which means you don't have to link everything together. And since they're really just prop bets, things like what Doug was saying, the team totals, they're in there. You can basically just have a team total in there as a single and make that your bet. So look, if you have any leans on players, try it. You have to opt into this promo, which means go to the promo page on Matchbook, and then you'll see that promotion. Opt in, make your Bet Builder bet, and look, take advantage of the free money as far as I'm concerned. So let's get on to the games. We are starting off with, now this is tomorrow night, but honestly, or Thursday night, shall I say, for the timeless internet, but you can't ignore this game because one of the top games of the week, right? Washington at Philly. And Judah, we're going to start with you. Let's look at the line first. Here's Washington as a pretty big dog, 2.68. Eagles are a solid favorite. Washington is getting 3.5, and that total sitting at a hefty 48.5. Now, Judah, you've been riding the Washington train. We've known it. Obviously, looking at last week where Washington was a 2.5-point favorite, now Philadelphia 3.5-point favorite on them. Is Philadelphia that much better than the Steelers, or is this kind of recency bias at work? Take it away.
Yeah, I don't think that. The Eagles are better than the Steelers. I also wouldn't really use these kind of 1-week samples, especially of a team like Pittsburgh that we're still kind of figuring out how good they are with Russell Wilson at quarterback. But I think it is kind of the right frame to say that the gap between these two teams is a bit much, at least especially in considering the matchup effects here. Right, the Eagles have been a dominant defense over really the last 2 months of the season, and I do think that is relatively sticky. They started playing. Cooper DeJean's been incredible as their slot corner, and that has certainly helped launch this defense among other factors. But I think when you kind of clash really good defense with elite offense or elite offense and elite defense, they don't just map evenly. Whereas if you take something closer to the middle of a distribution, it might. Elite offenses tend to beat elite defenses. And that is certainly true of the Washington team. And especially if you kind of break down the traits of what composes an elite offense. Is the elite offense elite because their scheme is terrific? They've had a bunch of really easy matchups and they can kind of stay within structure, a la the Minnesota Vikings, where when things start to break down, they're a little bit more fragile. A team like Washington, who's able to create because Jaden Daniels is so good when the play breaks down and is so good kind of processing when a rush is coming. I don't know why this is coming to mind now, but there was a play where Jaden Daniels very quickly realizes that the Steelers have blown up a screen. And I don't know why he didn't throw it away, but he immediately just kind of slides right back to the line of scrimmage. That is a 200 IQ play that we just basically do not see from anyone other than Patrick Mahomes. And it's
from a rookie.
From a rookie. It's these sort of little things that all kind of paint the picture, and this is certainly true from the data as well, of Jaden Daniels with this ability to create out of structure. And that mitigates the effect of the matchup, because even if you have a really good pass rush, if they can't get home because Jaden Daniels is extending the play or your coverage is doing a terrific job, and the Eagles have been great on both fronts, you are only able to cover NFL receivers for so long. And the ability to extend the play in the pocket where Jaden Daniels is top 3 kind of really mitigates that effect. So when you add it up, I think a lot of the value for Philly comes from this defensive advantage, so to speak. But I think that's kind of mitigated against Washington. They're going to be able to put up points against anyone, especially so when you break down kind of the traits of why they're successful. And the last thing I'll say on the flip side, especially if Jordan Mailata is still a no-go, which I anticipate him being, they did activate him to practice. Jalen Hurts has been a disaster when under pressure this year. And his splits against teams that are able to generate a pass rush are really, really drastic. And I think that, and we even saw this against the Cowboys, where they're really struggling in the first half when the pressure was coming. And this is the strength of the Washington defense. I've been talking for weeks about Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler. I think Dante Fowler is finally starting to get some respect after a couple of sacks last week. And that's the Achilles heel of the Eagles offense. So I think they're fragile in that regard too. Obviously, they're a good team. It's just when considering the market pricing, I think it is a little bit too steep, considering the matchup effects at play here and where Washington's offense is at.
Okay, I think I know which way you're leaning, but let's bring Doug in. Doug, short week. I don't know if this has any effect, or is either team, either coach better at preparing for this? Is that a factor?
I mean, we talked about it early in the year when Gerard Mayo had to go on his first short week off an overtime game, and the Patriots looked completely inept at the Jets on that short week. Now, Quinn has experience, obviously, but I think it's I made the line 3, and I thought that's what the line would be. So to grab the extra half, obviously very valuable in the NFL, because 3 being the most key number. About 15% of games are decided by 3 points exactly, since the extra point distance went back. I echo everything in terms of Daniels. I mean, that's why I liked him last week, especially against that Steelers defense. He just he's a defense disruptor, right? I mean, you have him and then you don't, and he can make plays, and he's not even thrown for a boatload of yards. It's like 210, 220, but the offense clicks and he makes plays, man. It's just, and again, a lot of this is Kingsbury too. Give him all the credit in the world as well. The guys are open in a lot of ways, and he knows how to scheme the right plays with the right weapons, and he's utilizing and optimizing Daniels's skill set, having worked with Kyler Murray before. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles covered. They are playing really well, but there's no chance I'd lay this number.
So you're leaning to attack it on the handicap, take the extra half-point value with Washington?
Yeah, that's where I am for sure.
Judah, how will you attack this game? Is it a money line play? Is it a handicap play, or something else?
Yeah, I think it's a money line or a Washington alt spread. I think that if the offense is going to be able to score points on Philly, this is a team that can win with a pretty wide margin. It begins to magnify the weaknesses of the Eagles if you force them into many pass heavy sets where the Washington pass rush can tee off. I think this is a spot where if Washington's going to win, I think is either in a close kind of field goal game or they have every ability to beat them by 10, 14 points.
Hello. Okay, nice value there, I think. And look, just in terms of the bet we're talking about, any player matchups, Doug, or that you would be looking at in this a player where the scheme is gonna make them perform well or poorly?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, this Philly team has been sort of all over the place. I had them against the Jaguars. They were a frustrating non-cover in that game just because they had such a nice lead. And they've manhandled some other teams. I thought the Cincy performance was one of the best that no one really talked about. I thought that was a really strong win and convincing win. You know, if you break it down, Jalen Hurts is plus money every week. Obviously, that's rushing and obviously the chance of a receiving touchdown. And he is a guy who's done it, I think, in 5 straight games. And if you're getting plus money and not just plus a little bit, you're getting solid, maybe 1.5 times your bet. So I would say if you just do that the rest of the year, you're going to net a profit. But I hate doing things like that because, you know, like even last week's touchdown was a little fluky because I think he ran it in from the 8 or 7. It wasn't just the tush push or brotherly shove. But I do think it's one of those things. If you just kind of do it, you'll end up grinding out a profit. But I don't want to grind out a couple cents here and there.
No, look, and those systems are tough because the market always catches up so fast. Judah, what about you? From what you said, am I thinking Jaden Daniels over passing yards, touchdowns, or is there a receiver? Any of that come into play for you?
Yeah, I think if anything, it would be over passing yards. I think that the stickiest part of the Eagles' defensive matchup is their ability to stop the run. And I think this also is a team that, especially if Brian Robinson is a no-go, is going to tilt a little bit pass heavier than usual. And like his attempts props are so low. I think we can start to see kind of a game where he's not throwing 27, 28 times, but something more like 31 or 32. That's a market you can attack. Pass attempts, but pass yards, I think, would be the more effective way to do it. Though I think this is, of all of the angles, kind of the least player market specific because he can do it with his legs, he can do it with his arm. There are a bunch of different ways for this to kind of hit.
Okay, nice one. Eyes peeled on this game. Definitely going to be Super Bowl odds implications on this result. Let's move on. Rams versus Patriots. Look at Rams. I think they're about a 4.5. They're a solid favorite here against the Patriots. Patriots coming off a win. Rams looked out of sorts. 4.5 there and a pretty low total. Now, Doug, I mean, are the Rams a team in disarray?
Maybe. I know it's a very cop-out. I was very disappointed with their performance, their lack of connectivity, and, this happens, right? This happens in all sports. I just don't think they should be that big of a favorite on the road in New England when they have clear flaws, and I like them better in the underdog role. It's been a tough read on the Rams because they seemingly were supposed to be the healthiest they've ever been going into Monday Night Football, and they were just kind of just flat. And sometimes that happens. I don't know. There's no clear reason why. Oh, they're coming off a big game the previous week or whatever. There's no real clear excuse. But I just don't understand this East Coaster. I've said it every week, and Judah's been on. Like I would throw out all the stats when Jacoby Brissett's the New England quarterback. So with Drake May, like that's just too many points, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And for whatever reason, the Rams laying flat last week. It's not like they should bounce back, but I don't think this team's a reliable team like some of these other teams are off a loss.
Absolutely. And so I think it sounds like you're leaning Patriots here, maybe on the handicap. Judah, you are the Drake May man. Is that right? Yep. Judah, you are the Drake May man. Are we keeping it going here? Patriots at home.
I'm a little bit less on Drake May in this spot. I think the Rams game is relatively fluky. Like, bad games happen for teams. This is all part of the distribution. We didn't learn anything new. They've had bad games before. I think this is still a Rams team that is very healthy and should be one of the more consistent offenses in the league. I was definitely surprised that the Miami pass rush, which has been a top 5 unit all year, very quietly, was able to really manhandle the Rams offensive line, especially after the Rams offensive line got much healthier. But I don't think this is an area that New England can replicate. Their pass rush last week, I don't think magically woke up. They've been a bottom 5 unit all of last year. I think that had a lot to do with Caleb Williams. And even as we talked about, Caleb Williams had been holding onto the ball for just a ridiculous amount of time. He went from like 2.8 seconds before the bye to 3.5 after. He's been inviting more pressure than any other quarterback in the league. I don't think that's a New England pass rush thing. I think that's a Caleb Williams thing. And this is a Rams offense that I think should have success, especially through the air. New England plays a ton of man coverage. Christian Gonzalez is a good player. For sure, they do not have the depth at cornerback to go one-on-one with the Rams receivers. That's a matchup mismatch waiting to happen. And I love Drake May. It's one thing to bet on Drake May as a 6.5 point dog against the Bears. It's another thing with 4.5 points against the Rams. And obviously home field comes into account here, but I think there's a massive tier difference here. New England still has a real uphill battle to win most games. And when the market's kind of pricing this not as a game around a touchdown, but something a little bit closer, I'm a little bit more hesitant. I think the market's reacted very strongly to the Rams and Patriots last couple games, and I don't think that's particularly not particularly well adjusted, I guess.
Recency bias, right? So it sounds like a bit of a
recency bias. My English, for some reason, it's I haven't had enough coffee yet. It's not flowing today.
Sounds like a sidelines play for you, Doug. I know you always have your ear on the ground in Las Vegas. Is any sharp money getting bet on a side in this game?
I think Judah nailed it. There's recency bias. Like the public better certainly might take the Patriots at first glance. In terms of this game, nothing I've heard predominantly. I don't think anyone's going to be in a rush to lay the points, right? The 4.5 or 5. So I think this game is probably going to have some sharp guys on the sidelines for this one. That would be my first inclination.
All right. Two games to watch there. Before we go on to our third, let me just mention our sign-up offer at Matchbook. Obviously, we've got that every week promo with the Bet Builder, but if you're not a customer yet at Matchbook, there's a couple of sign-up offers. You can go to the site, you can look at the promo page, basically 2 sign-up offers, right? One of them gives you free money and free bets for a deposit. One of them gives you 0% comms. Look, they're both good value, but my advice is, if you're a guy who makes a lot of bets, maybe you're in racing, maybe you like to bet a lot of matches, definitely take the 0% comms. And if you're more of a weekly player, just betting the NFL Sundays, that kind of thing, take the free bets. But either way, don't sign up without taking advantage of an offer. Let's move on to the Chiefs and Bills. What can you say? Is anybody not going to be watching this with eyes peeled, shall we say? Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. Oh my gosh, Buffalo's a favorite here. Not a huge favorite, but it is solid. 2 points. They're giving up to Kansas City with the over/under at 46. And we're going to go to you, Judah. Obviously, you were hyping the Bills last week. They look class. But there's a guy in this space who always says Mahomes as a dog is like a gift from God. Are you on that train?
Yeah, like I said, a guy in this space, as though it's not 1,000 people in this space.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's certainly some logic to that, and I think it kind of reveals a truth about how Mahomes and the Chiefs play. It really does seem, and these are hard things to quantify, that like the Chiefs really do kind of save up for the high leverage moments and the high leverage plays. I guess the evidence for that is Mahomes' ability to come back in games is completely unparalleled and historical. So there's certainly some truth to that. Although it seems like they win this game. It's almost like they have the AFC in the bag, especially considering they've already beaten the Ravens. Either way, I think that the kind of main angle I'm taking at this game is that the Chiefs defense is extremely overrated right now. They lost their number 2 and 3 cornerbacks early in the season, and their replacements have been terrible, ranking in by some of my numbers, 10th and 20th percentile in separation prevented. Their last 3 opponents have been Vegas, not great offenses, I should say. Vegas, Denver. There's one other I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Not a particularly strong unit. They've all averaged 0.15 EBA per play, EBA per pass. The run defense has been terrific. The pass defense has been bad. It hasn't yet been exposed because they haven't faced a real quality offense, but this defense is still priced as one of the very best. And they're simply not the same unit as they lost 2 huge pieces in their cornerback room. I think it's fair to say, given the kind of fundamentals at play and how these teams have performed, I think the spread is fair. But I don't think this is the relevant sample for the Chiefs defense is not the first 6 weeks of the season, but it should be really heavily weighted towards the last month, because that's they lost some key pieces and that's not changing. So all that is to say, I think this is a Bills team that will be able to have success passing the ball, which teams have not been able to do. Again, we can talk about this elite defense versus elite offense thing. Similar principles apply. And on the flip side, the Chiefs have not won this year by Mahomes magic. They've been a real success rate type of team, marching down the field, having Mahomes convert on 3rd and 5, which is a fine recipe for success so long as it's 5 yards and not 10 yards. If it is going to be 10 yards, Mahomes is better than anyone else to do it. But this is a Bills run defense that, from a success rate point of view, or from just an ability to stop the run, with the exception of 1 80-yard rush, and obviously that matters. You can't just take that sample away. They've been terrific on run defense. They've been probably the best in the league over the last 5-6 weeks. I anticipate that making the Chiefs a little bit less efficient on offense. Add it all up, and I think that the Bills have some value here as slight favorites.
And Doug, obviously we were talking last week about momentum, the Detroit train. They did end up winning. God knows how. They didn't cover. But look, if you like KC here, what are you thinking? And should you just be on the money line, actually? How does the momentum play for you?
Well, I believe that the stats 12-1-1, him and Andy Reid as a dog. And I think what Judah is saying is right, because they're not covering machine, but they find ways to win. And it's a little corny to say that, a little trendy, especially because last week, the Denver O-line during that field goal attempt was pathetic. The guy who gave up the block, he gets steamrolled in every snap of a field goal. And that's just bad coaching not to fix that, and good coaching on KC's part to kind of notice that and bull rush that specific spot. I guess Denver should have won the game, right? So we know that. And how would we be viewing this game if they did? I think the line feels right. I did talk to an oddsmaker about this game, and he said he thinks the line's going to close 3. And I said, you mean there won't be an avalanche of money as soon as +3 is out there? Because a lot of times it's the market just can't help themselves. They have to get the full 3 if it's there. And he said, look, I think sharps really want to bet the Bills in this game. And yeah, there'll be public money on KC, blah, blah, blah. But Judah said it. This has not been Mahomes' magic most of the season. Some of these games have just, I think Harbaugh really botched the Chargers game. He went for it at midfield, tried to kick a field goal instead of hitting KC back. I think he would have won if he had punted in that game, for anyone who was watching that. I think I have a teaser with the Dolphins on Monday night, although I didn't need the teaser part of the Dolphins, but I teased them for the +8.5. I think these are the things where you can really be smart about the +1.5s and 2.5s. Give yourself some line value. I think it's important to remember that the Chiefs have won the playoff meetings and the Bills have won most of the regular season meetings. So keep that in mind. But Andy Reid in-game adjustments is really strong when it comes to X's and O's. Spagnuolo will push the right buttons, but Josh Allen's been great, and it could be addition by subtraction. They got rid of the squeaky wheel in Stephon Diggs, and he's now just letting it rip, and he's such a beast. So as awesome as Mahomes is, you really want to bet against Josh Allen in a big game? I know it sounds cheesy, but sometimes you just got to sit on the sidelines in these big games and just watch as a fan. I will say the total feels a little high. Just the ball control that they're going to want to do. I noticed that in one of the regular season meetings. I think the play calling is within the back of their mind. It's let's keep the ball away from the opposing team's quarterback and sort of matriculate up the field. So there might be a line value there on the under, just given that stats from earlier in the season are different, because I think the play calling is going to change when you know the other quarterback involved on the other sideline.
Sounds good. And look, important bit of strategy there. If you do have a lean, bet the Bills early and the Chiefs late, right? If it does move the way you say. So that's a good bit of advice. Judah, in terms of attacking this from a matchup standpoint, you're mentioning about the Chiefs defense being overrated. How is there any players to attack or stats to attack from that point of view?
Well, I think it's a little too early to say, considering we don't know the injury outlook for the Bills. But I do think Josh Allen's passing props are going to be mispriced. I haven't seen them come out yet, but if they're using kind of the medians, I think this is a Bills team that's much pass heavier than they've been earlier in the season. And also the defensive matchup is not as bad as perceived. Again, it all depends on what actual number comes out. But if it is as I anticipate, I think there'll be probably some value on the Allen overs.
All right. Do they have to lose sooner or later? We will find out. Let's go to our fourth game. This is Monday Night Football. Texans at the Cowboys. Can you even call them Cowboys anymore? Who knows? Texans, big favorite in Dallas. 1.28 on the money line, giving 7.5 away with the over-under at 42. Oh, my, that's low. So, Doug, let's start with you. I mean, I don't know. How many points is too many points to give a team at home?
Well, depends on the matchup, right? I think this Dallas outfit stinks. I think they're a lost cause. I think they have a bad coach from an X's and O's, and I don't think he's going to rally the locker room, especially when you come into a season with such high aspirations. I don't think there are any moral victories or anything like that. I don't think they're a team fighting like maybe the Patriots are or even the Titans. I think they're a team that season's unraveled, and Cooper Rush is whatever. I think Houston, given how last week ended, I think they're going to come in and hopefully let it rip and not make some of the most ridiculous mistakes like they did in the second half. I think this should be a beatdown. I think it's, these are opportunities in my eyes, kind of like last week when the NFL is different than college, right? Like there's going to be just resistance in the market. Like a college line would go up to like 10.5, 11, there wouldn't be much resistance or stubbornness in the market. Whereas the respected sharp money, and you got to respect it, but won't let this get too crazy, too out of whack, right or wrong. So I think these are times when you can optimize and take advantage. But this Cowboys team stinks on defense. On offense, they can't run the ball. They can't do a whole lot. And I think this is a Texan team that is going to understand the opportunity that was lost and come in and be more assertive this week.
Right, and there's public money too, right? There's however many million people out there that are just going to have to bet the Dallas each week, no matter what. So that
sort of, it's not as significant as it used to be. Fair
enough. Judah, Doug just mentioned Cooper Rush. I didn't even know who the starting quarterback was. I didn't know if Lance was starting. What is the quarterback situation here for Dallas?
Yeah, I think they've said it's going to be Cooper Rush, which is an interesting decision. I think you might have.
Do you like that one? I mean, is that where you go? Okay.
No, unless it's just like Trey Lance is still very raw. He's probably not good, but like we have a known quantity in Cooper Rush. It's not good. There's a reason that they're such massive underdogs at home. He's not a good quarterback unless the goal is to lose. Though I don't think that is that does not seem like a Cowboys way. I would at least try and see what you have with Trey Lance. It's a marginal decision, probably not going to make a difference. They would be massive underdogs one way or another. But I think this is a spot to like the Texans. The defense has been great, especially if it's Cooper Rush. He's not an NFL quarterback. He had success in previous seasons on the backs of a Cowboys defense. I should say he had success. The Cowboys had success with Cooper Rush at quarterback on the backs of a dominant defense. They're the furthest thing from that this year, even after getting Micah Parsons back, which certainly helps. This is a really bad unit. The Texans, I anticipate having Nico Collins back, completely transforms the entirety of their offense. They can score. They've got a great matchup, and I'm not sure how Dallas is going to score points with Rush at quarterback against a tough Texans team.
You did mention that the Houston O-line had problems earlier. Do you think that's going to sort it out?
Still have problems. It's going to be a little bit. It's going to matter a little less when Nico Collins is getting separation in 2 seconds to get the ball out quick. Still definitely a problem. That is the Achilles heel of the Texans. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to pass. Even if a couple of those plays are disrupted. I don't think it's kind of the main angle of this spot, though certainly a concern.
Cool. So I'm hearing blowout from both of you. Doug, on the team total front, is this a spot to actually load up on Houston maybe?
I don't know, because every time I bet on the Texans, CJ Stroud plays like Blake Bortles, and every time I bet against him, he plays like Patrick Mahomes. So, it's all my fault, really. No, I can see them getting right, but also this Cowboys, it could be a game that unfolds like last week, right? Where they're just so limited and just a pedestrian team that Texans might just play field position and lean on that defense and just try to grind out the clock and not blow the game. But they should really just dominate this game. Like, there's such a better outfit. And CJ Stroud is so much better quarterback. Now, like most young quarterbacks, he's been much better on the road, at home than on the road. But I just think the spot off of what happened last week, I think this is a team that's going to just be less tentative and going to take it to the Cowboys. And I think Dallas is a mess.
Okay, look, sounds good. I must admit, I'm not looking forward to watching this game, but I am going to have a bet and like both your guys' angles in. Let's move on to the long shots. This has been a nice little spot of success for both of you of late. Judah, we'll start with you. What have you got?
Yeah, I think it's Washington on the alt here. If they're going to win, they're going to win with margin. I think this is an offense that is as matchup agnostic as it gets in the NFL. And I think this Eagles offense can quietly struggle in a negative game script against a very underrated Washington pass rush. Not that much more to add from what we've already said.
Okay, but you've gone 9.5 here. I mean, when you go to the alt lines, do you feel like in general they get correlated properly? Why 9.5? Why not 10? I mean,
yeah, it's just around it. I don't think they're correlated properly because it's going to be using kind of a universal distribution, and for all the reasons we just outlined, that Washington has by its nature a different volatility curve, which is why I'm happy to take the alt line. Why 9.5? It's just getting right below the semi-key number of 10, where there's the most value. It's going to likely change a little bit here or there, but I think this is a team that can win with margin, and I'm not looking to get too crazy at especially as the VIG gets higher around 11.5, 12.5, 9.5.
I mean, honestly, 6.1 sounds like a massive price there. That looks that don't have to stake too big to get a nice punch on that one. Doug, where are you going on the long shot this week?
I think the scheduling spot is crazy, so I might as well make a crazy play. But the Raiders money line, look, they're off a bye, and you have the short week for the Dolphins, and Tyreek Hill wasn't even really healthy. Tua made a lot of shaky throws. He held on to the ball forever. And I don't think Antonio Pierce is a good coach, but one thing he has done is kind of pushes the right buttons. Remember, he called out his team for the business decisions and things like that. And Bill Belichick's like, you can't call people soft and all this stuff. And he could, because he played linebacker on a Super Bowl winning team recently, and he has that cachet. And it's a little bit of an old school approach. Doesn't work with everyone, but I think this guy has a nice pulse of the locker room and will squeeze out every last ounce of talent that is somehow in that locker room. So not that I love the reported move to Desmond Ridder, but it's not like the other quarterbacks are any good either. I just think the where we are in the juncture of the season, short week for Miami, Raiders off a bye. I think that's a bizarre scheduling advantage. And this is the NFL, probably like taking 3.5's a better long shot, something like that, as opposed, as an 8-point dog. But let's pump the brakes on Miami. Like, they've looked good the last 2 weeks. Even I thought they played well against Buffalo. But the guy, Waddle still making big drops. Tyreek Hill was a game time decision for the most part. And I think it's worth taking the flyer on this because of the schedule.
Am I right in saying, did they fire like all the entire offensive coaches?
The OC and the play Collins. But I think what happens, that does,
what happens when that happens? Yeah, what happens? Do they
look
just
at New Orleans?
Look
at New Orleans. What happens is everyone's out. Everyone. It happens in corporate life too, right? There's a rattling of the cage. People start to understand that they're expendable as well, and people sort of play. But now the problem is there's not that much talent. There's not that much competency in terms of the coaching staff and things like that. But Miami's laid some eggs this year too.
All right. So 2 nice hot value long shots there. Let's get on to the best bets. They have been the zingers for this pod. I'm not missing them. So Doug, let's get back to you. Where do you really like the money for value this week?
Texans. I'm going to go back to that Monday night game. It's like, road favorite on Monday night, blah, blah. It's like me in high school again, making bad bets. No, I just think this, and I've said it before, odds makers will tell you this, they hate these types of games. The market doesn't really know the proper power rating for Dallas with Cooper Rush at quarterback and where they are at this juncture of the season, right? It's a lot of variables, a lot of unknowns. So I'm okay with the Texans laying lumber on the road. I'm not that impressed with Dallas. Now, the afternoon was favorable for the public laying the chalk in those situations, and it was not favorable in the morning where there are a lot of dogs won outright. So this is not as simple as like, look what happened last week. It's going to happen again. But this Houston team can't mess around, and I think the defense is solid. Not that Jared Goff was this amazing quarterback and they had a bunch of picks that, they're a ball hawk defense, but I think it's going to be a very vanilla offense out of Dallas and be able to grind out a 2-score win.
Good. We're here to bet smart. We're here to try and grab some value. That sounds like it. Judah, best bet of the week.
Yeah, going with Buffalo -2.
Hello.
Yes, I think there is certainly some logic to the Mahomes as an underdog, but I just think the market has not yet caught up to the Chiefs defense in a very important way, and that's kind of going to be a key matchup with the Bills offense here. And I don't anticipate that. Kansas City, if Mahomes goes off, I think that's certainly the pathway to them winning. But the market is really just kind of mispricing this matchup, and how the Chiefs offense operates, I think really plays into the strengths of the Bills defense, especially in the run game. So going with Bills -2.
I like it. And there's just so much mystique, right? The public money loves the mystique, loves everything. And maybe the stats don't lie. So there we go. Take the Bills, take the Texans. I think we got some great value bets this week, gentlemen. Thank you very much to Judah Fortgang, Doug Kezirian. It is any given Sunday. I'll be telling myself, keep your stakes the same, because I don't want to get too cocky from last week, but definitely betting this card. Hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next week here on the Matchbook Podcast.